Pendred is involved in Cage Warrior 52's main event in the HMV Forum in London on Saturday night. Cathal, we don't honestly do a lot of MMA on the station. I suppose it's one of those sports that is actually finally getting a bit of notice in Ireland. Are you actually noticing this yourself as somebody that's been centrally involved in it and actually been pro now for a number of years?
Yeah, it's phenomenal, the changes that have been happening recently with the exposure MMA is getting in the country. It's been slowly progressing. Well, I shouldn't even say slowly, but it's been progressively been getting more interest for the last few years. But the last 6 months, it's just completely blown up, and it's insane. It's really good for the sport and for the people involved.
I think I'm right in saying this is your 15th fight.
Yeah, 15 professional fights. Yeah.
Tell us a bit about how the career progresses over 15 fights in MMA. 2 defeats, but it's not like a lot of sports where a defeat sets you back a number of months. People kind of expect that you're going to win some and lose some. Yeah,
it's a slightly different with other combat sports, because it's the way the sport is. It's mixed martial arts. There's a lot more ways to lose. You can lose by submission or knockout or technical knockout or decision. There's a lot more variables. So it's very, very rare that you see anyone with no losses on their record. And what's more is the matches are always very, very competitively matched. Whereas in boxing, even people involved in boxing will tell you when someone turns pro, and they're usually their first few fights are against people that it's pretty much guaranteed that they can beat, where it doesn't really happen in MMA.
I noticed that anytime I talk about MMA on Twitter or boxing, that the MMA guys who tweet me are very defensive about sport, almost as if boxing is the enemy. And you kind of wonder, are you not all actually trying to get the same fans? People who like combat sports probably are going to like more than one combat sport.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. It's kind of both sides are guilty of it, really. Some of the MMA guys can get defensive and saying boxing is better, or MMA is better than boxing, and some boxing people, get very defensive about their sport, and really it's not really a good argument, because they're two different sports. They're both combat sports, but it's like comparing Gaelic football and soccer. They're two different games. So and people, there is a lot of people that enjoy both, and I think most people that enjoy one should be able to enjoy the other. So.
One of the things that I kind of always like to ask people who risk getting hit in the head for a living is, when did you decide that getting involved in a sport where concussing your opponent was going to be something that you were happy to dedicate most of your life to?
It was a bit different for me, but I was always big into martial arts. As a kid, I loved to do martial arts, loved martial arts movies, and that's kind of how I started doing taekwondo and judo and stuff as a kid. My parents would always go crazy at me because I'd start one and do it for a few months, and they'd fork out for a few months lessons. I'd get the karate suit and whatnot, and then I'd decide I wanted to do something else. So they used to always go crazy about that. But then when I went to secondary school, I started playing rugby, and kind of gave up all that. And I was playing a lot of rugby in school, so I didn't have time for anything else. But while I was in school, I came across mixed martial arts on the TV, and it really captured my interest. And I probably would have taken it up then, but like I said, I didn't have the time. I was playing a lot of rugby. So when I left school, I moved over to San Diego in California for a few months with some friends, and there was gyms everywhere there, and I wasn't playing rugby, so I had a bit extra time in my hands, and I started a few classes, and I just fell in love with it straight away. It's just I don't know what it is about the sport. I think it's just the one-on-one competition that I love. I see it as the ultimate form of competition. One guy against the other, just using his martial arts to try and beat the guy.
It is way more violent than most of the other martial arts, where I think I'm right in saying most other martial arts, it's getting your opponent to submit. In MMA and ultimately in UFC, where I think everybody who gets involved in it hopes to end up there is a point where you're actually trying to inflict a bit of damage on the opponent. And I don't know, it just strikes me that if you are involved in it, that actually that could be kind of an addictive thing to be involved in.
You know, you're definitely right. Any combat sport, you're definitely trying to inflict a bit of damage to the other guy, but at the same time you're trying to do it as quickly as possible, you know, get in and get out. But what you're saying there about it being addictive, I would completely disagree. I think it's the complete opposite. I was a bit of a wild child, especially as a teenager. I probably would have been in a, you know, would have been the type of guy that would have been getting in fights, and when I played rugby, if there was a scuffle going on, a bit of handbags on the pitch, it was 100%. You'd see my face in there getting involved, and since I started doing MMA when I was about 19, I've gone completely different. I'm a lot more relaxed, and I'm never. I've no interest in anything like that. Outside of the gym or outside of an actual fight, which is you know, like a sanctioned professional fight. Yeah. I've no interest in fighting anyone whatsoever. I'd walk away from. In fact, I've numerous occasions since I started MMA have walked away from people on nights out, whatever, that are looking for a fight, and that would have, if you were to have met me while I was between the ages of 16 to 19, it definitely wouldn't have been the case.
Sure, I didn't so much mean in everyday life, but that actually when you're in the ring, one of the reasons that you must go back to it is that being involved in a confrontation with somebody within the rules of the cage, that it is a thrilling, the violence is kind of thrilling to both of the people who have decided these are the rules of engagement. I know exactly what you're trying to do to me, and I'm going to do it to you first.
The thrilling thing about MMA, what I find is, and definitely from the discussing it with my teammates, is that honestly, when you win, it's the biggest high you'll ever get in your life. But it's nothing to do with inflicting pain or in your opponent. I mean, there's guys who go in and you put on a submission on a guy and which hurts him, and he'll tap as soon as it hurts, because if he doesn't tap, it'll break his arm. But as soon as he taps and you let go, he's fine, because he tapped before there was any damage done. And it doesn't make a difference whether you won and the guy is really hurt, or you know, he didn't take that much damage at all. It's just the winning. There's so much put into each fight. You only fight usually every 3 to 4 months as a professional fighter, so there's a lot of training, a lot of sacrifice, a lot of dedication that goes into a fight. And the thrill you get from winning is just beating your opponent in whatever fashion necessary. And it doesn't have to be you know, with a lot of violence. There's a lot of it really depends on the style of the fighter, but there's a lot of fighters that just go in there really quickly and submit their opponent, and there's absolutely no damage done whatsoever.
We've seen just recently Conor McGregor get signed by the UFC, so the Irish guys are starting to get noticed. Presumably that's on your radar. I don't know, is that the type of thing you openly declare? Is it a come and get me, UFC, give me a contract, let me in there?
Yeah, well, 100%. I know I'm like I've been saying for a while, I feel I'm the best guy in my weight division in Europe, and I'm definitely one of the next in line of European guys, and most definitely the Irish guys when they do come looking to sign someone. I'm been asked in nearly every interview I do about the UFC, and that's another. You know, I find it complimentary that people know that I'm at that level, and they know I should be in there soon, but. At the same time, I have a fight coming up now this Saturday, so I'm just trying to stay focused on that. Getting signed by the UFC is something that's out of my control. I'm just focusing on what's in my control at the moment, and that's just winning my next fight.
Well, listen, Carl, best of luck this weekend, whatever happens, and thanks very much for making the time to talk to us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Text in here, Ger, for a guy who interviewed Aisling Daly many years ago, your question to Carl about inflicting injury seemed a bit disingenuous. It wasn't intended to be in any way disingenuous. I'm interested in somebody whose job it is to try and inflict a concussive injury on somebody else as part of your day-to-day I'm doing my business here. That's what I do for a living thing. Michael and Lust says, great to hear MMA being covered. MMA is a great sport. Fighters seem to reach their prime near 30. Takes so long to master all aspects. Plenty of up-and-coming Irish fighters. Carl was talking about rugby there. He was on the same senior cup team in Belvedere that won a senior cup as Cian Healy, who apparently he's good mates with. So he played it to a pretty high level. It's still scoreless. Juve 0, Celtic 0.